Hi, my name is Christian Schröder and I'm Professor of Methods of Social Work in Germany at the University for Applied Sciences in Saarbrücken, and I'm also the convener of this workshop entitled Transformative Practice in Social Work, Lessons from the Global Justice Movement. I will start by introducing myself, and I will then share some thoughts on what I think we can learn from the global justice movements for our social work practice. Well, in my studies and in my research, I focus on international and transnational social work theory and practice, as well as on community and urban development. During my studies, I went for an internship to Middle America. In El Salvador, I did research on a project of Caritas International, which tried to initiate and to establish community-based networks of people who then would become politically active for their own cause. I continue to work with such community-based methods and other approaches today in the urban context in Germany. After I finished my studies, my interest in self-organization processes has arisen, and I applied for a fellowship to research transnational social movements. My dissertation looks at the organizing processes of the global justice movements, taking the World Social Forum as an empirical example. Since then, I've been critically examining case-oriented social work, and I have been looking for methods of action that, in my point of view, meet with the goals of social work according to its international definition. In my own words, this goal of social work is that social work should contribute to global justice, and social work should do that on the basis of human rights. Although the methods of social work historically originated in the context of social movements at the beginning of the 20th century, in the discourse of social work it is often critically stated that the practices of social work primarily serve to secure the status quo. In contrast, in the international discourse, social work is firstly declared as a human rights profession, and secondly, it is proclaimed that social work should be directed against the social distortions of neoliberalism. So I think there's a gap between normative claims and social work practice, which makes it important to develop a critical social work practice based on developing critical habits of self-questioning. Garrett speaks of a dissenting social work and defines it as a form of neo-social work, adding to those efforts spent on pushing back against moves to limit the field of possibilities for educators and practitioners. Nevertheless, the debate on readjustment of the relationship between social movements and social work is still in its infancy, especially concerning social work responses to the continuing colonialization and current global social challenges. Exploring the relationship between contemporary transnational social movements and social work practice could be, I think, a good starting point. In May 2022, this idea led me again to the World Social Forum, about which I have written my doctoral thesis. The World Social Forum is a civil society summit that was first held at the turn of the millennium in Porto Alegre in Brazil. And during that time it was initiated as a counter-summit to the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum gathers the most powerful people on earth in Davos in Switzerland. The World Social Forum, on the other hand, brings together those who do not profit from globalization and opposes the unjust conditions produced by the neoliberal system. The World Social Forum, now held every 2 years, and it gathers tens of thousands of people from grassroots movements, trade unions, and from non-governmental organizations who meet within a week to exchange ideas. The basic principle of the open space of the World Social Forum led and leads to the emergence of numerous associations, such as the World Social Forum for Free Media or the World Women's March, as well as it leads to the emergence of initiatives that enable or support the exchange of ideas between activists from around the globe. One initiative is, for example, Barbells, a network of volunteer translators. Another example is Nomad, a group that builds translation devices from radios. So the World Social Forum is an open space, a space of encounter, and it is an open space for individual and collective learning processes. For this reason, I think it is also a central place for social work to reflect on our own practices and to discover new transformative practices which can then be adapted again to our own context of social work practice. In the following, I would like to really just summarize in a few bullet points what I took away from the last World Social Forum, and I then want to invite everyone to think critically about their own social work practice and to share the experience with transformative social practices. The last World Social Forum took place in Mexico City. Very relevant for me at the last World Social Forum was the approach of the popular education. Popular education, in a nutshell, is about the self-determined elaboration of non-hegemonic knowledge which is linked to emancipatory goals. At the World Social Forum, this idea was also evident in many transformative practices of social movements. The activists in the World Social Forum for Free Media show how news can be disseminated that is not colored by political and financial interests. So it's news from grassroots movements. And this is, for example, implemented by creating own channels, such as community radios, for example. And also many communities that I have visited within Mexico and during my stay there are there organizing themselves with the approach of popular education on a grassroots level, and also beyond representative democracy, but also beyond the market by developing techniques for collective decision-making processes at assemblies, and by organizing cooperatives of economies of solidarity. Techniques of collective decision-making have been also developed to protect against potential abuse of power within the community or movement assemblies. This is done, for example, by sensitizing the actors before the meetings to the fact that they have been socialized differently as man and woman, and therefore have to learn together to deal sensitively and critically with the established role models. Another exciting observation at the World Social Forum for me is that the approaches vary between nation states. While in some, especially Western countries, the collection of signatures and the submission of petitions appears to be an established means, in many other countries beyond the Western world, protest, civil disobedience, and above all, the collective organization of people is clearly on the foreground as means of making oneself heard. I think especially the approaches that aim at the collective organization of people who are confronted with structural inequalities is something that social work, at least in Germany, can learn a lot from. Finally, the World Social Forum is also a place where groups from the so-called global North and the global South reflect on their cooperation. And international solidarity, of course, begins in the daily struggles and local contexts, and there's a need to expand these efforts to bring about international change. In the process of building these international solidarity, it became clear at the World Social Forum that it's necessary to change the perspective of actors in the struggle from victims to political subjects. The key is to build trust between different actors, and this requires meeting spaces with sufficient time and resources. With the concept of open space, I think the World Social Forum itself offers a good opportunity to build on trust, at least as long as the open space method is understood and also used as a place of encounter from which alliances can emerge without pressure to cooperate or without pressure or force to develop a common strategy at the end. Given that social work has historically worked within a normalization framework under capitalism, patriarchy, neoliberalism, and colonialism, this is something that is still rooted in the field today, and it impacts social workers' practice. So let's start a collective discourse on dismantling this framework. So now, I would like to invite you to share your thoughts on social work practice. What vision should social work have? What transformative practices are needed to realize that vision? I very much look forward to your feedback, to your comments, and I would be also very happy to continue this exchange after the Congress. So please do not hesitate to contact me or leave your contact details with your contribution to this workshop. Thank you very much.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. My name is Sylvia Fischbaut. I'm a graphic designer and communicologist in CECIP, Popular Image Creation Center, based in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I'm here on behalf of the Campaign for a Global Curriculum of Social Solidarity Economy and the University of Good Living. Thank you very much for the invitation to participate at the Global Summit, People's Global Summit 2022. Let's go to our answers. I will share a screen with you. Let's see if you can see it, okay. Okay, the first question, what vision should social work have, and what transformative practices are necessary to achieve this vision? Okay, our answer for this question is social work should have a comprehensive vision of the territory. Understanding the territory as the place where people carry daily lives, organizing home as the origin of the world economy remind us. Even so, far beyond the usual routine of consuming and offering services and goods, we have this vision of coming together to gain strength and political incidence, to change life as society under the inspiration of solidarity. To us, solidarity not only between human beings, but also inspired by the ancient Andean philosophy, the buen vivir, sumac causai, good living. A profound sense of belonging, body and soul, belonging to the integrated to the biosphere. So the commitment by which people are loyal to each other, to each one, and each to all, includes here the understanding of the rights of the nature. Walking this path, we consider as powerful practices the empathic listening, nonviolent communication, integration between people from city, countryside, and forests and other biomes, as well as the empowering kids, okay, to empowering children to participate in the construction of the life of the community. In a practical summary, the transformative practices must be articulation bridges with the living forces of the social solidarity economy. Well, our second question was, what can social work learn from social movements? To us, the social work should learn to know, should learn to do socioeconomy, learn to listen, to articulate with the movements, with their practices and experiences, their knowledge and learning of good living, through social currencies, responsible consumption, and multi-reciprocal exchange. Okay, that was our message to you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Hello, I am Keti Gigineshvili. I am a social worker from Georgia. Right now, I am the director of Georgian Association of Social Workers. I also work in Ilia State University. I teach social workers, future social workers. My practice is connected with the children and also people with disabilities, their family members, and community members too. Right now, my practice is connected with macro-social work and striving for changes for human rights. The history of social work profession development in Georgia shows that this process is dynamic and it facilitates the growth of profession. Professional identity of social workers is growing step by step, and during this time the profession has expanding and also had quite a lot of fight for maintaining on the track of social work professional mandate. Social workers become the change agents at their workplaces, which are reflected in their activism to make positive changes in the system or in the structures. Social workers are striving for their professional development, advancing their social policies, and maintaining professional standards of practice. And Georgian Association of Social Workers, GASW, and academia, namely Ilia State University and Tbilisi State University, have pivotal roles in this promotion of scientifically based social work, professional development, and advancement of better social work policies and educational opportunities in the field. Social work as a human rights-based profession focuses on the need for social action for community change. And for Georgian example, as mentioned before, social work has fought for its place and also has been at the same time assisting the government for better changes and being the part of reforms too, but based on very recent practice, how social workers were mobilized, we can name several examples. For example, in 2018, group of social workers were requiring, with their peaceful movement, their active involvement of professional community in elaboration processes of Georgian law on social work, actually, which was enforced in 2018. In 2019, social activism in Georgia in social work sphere became even more active, reflected on the first ever historical strike of social workers in order to ensure better social services and social work services for their beneficiaries, as well as better working environments for them as professionals. And it was also the case of defending their own rights by social workers, and it was successful. Still, the system needs more changes, and of course it has more challenges, and it needs more positive changes for the future. But this strike was historical, and also it had we can say good results for this period of time. And another answer to the global challenges was in 2020 when this coronavirus was spread throughout the world, and of course in Georgia too. And GASW started mobilizing international and local resources and knowledge to assist systems in Georgia for better social work practices during pandemic. And in 2022, when this disaster war started in Ukraine and people are obliged to leave their countries and move to another countries, namely Ukrainians, GASW has initiated and mobilized social workers network in order to help Ukrainians who are in Georgia or who are in Ukraine, and children and women and elderlies and families by charity work, namely sending charity cargoes to Ukraine in the war zone as much as it is possible with the help of embassy, and also to strengthen social workers' skills and knowledge how to work with trauma and how to work war-affected people. And GASW is also continuing its working process in terms of activation of social workers whenever there is need of any support to Georgian social policy or any vulnerable groups. So these are the very recent examples of social activism or mobilization of social work professionals in our country, and hopefully it will continue and it will have more and more results. And for a given moment, now that the Georgia has the law on social work, which represents the different roles of social work profession, it is important to support the development of social work practice in terms of community work, social activism, better approaches of social advocacy, self-mobilization, participating in social program development, and also development of educational systems of social work. So hopefully we will soon have good results in this direction. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Teona Gotsuridze. I'm social worker and PhD student from Georgia. I also teach and learn social work. I have more than 10 years experience in social work in several fields. Mainly, this experience includes research in child protection sphere and street-connected youth. So my ongoing project and thesis is about HIV prevention and street-connected youth under the project which is funded by Schröder National Science Foundation of Georgia.
Hello, I am Ketevan Lekishvili. I am a social worker in master degree. I work at a research center for advancing science in social service and interventions as a researcher. And I also teach at Yale State University Applied Social Science faculty. As a global definition of social work states, social work is a practice-based profession and an academic discipline. Promotes social change and development, social cohesion, and the empowerment and the liberation of people that is based not only on social work and related science theories, but also on indigenous knowledges too.
Also, me as an academic person who teaches and works actively in field, I think that there are many challenges as in practice, and also social work profession needs to have more evidence-based approaches to be developed and later used in practice. In professional development, I believe that theoretical and practical knowledge should have an equal place in terms of professional development, which should be achieved through quality and continuous teaching in the educational system. It must be mentioned that professional supervision must be provided on workplaces is crucial to ensure quality social work service delivery. The profession of social work is growing and renewable profession that requires continuing education. And I would also note that academic education is irreplaceable, but must be enriched in new finding and approaches.
Olá, meu nome é Aline Mendonça, sou brasileira, sou trabalhadora social, sou professora de programa de pós-grado em Política Social e Direitos Humanos da Universidade Católica de Pelotas, assim como sou professora da carreira de Trabalho Social da mesma universidade. Actualmente estou aqui em México, haciendo una instancia como profesora invitada de la UNAM. Bueno, en México hace 2 semanas vivimos el Foro Social Mundial, donde conocí a Cris, el compañero que está facilitando, ¿no? este taller, este workshop, y a quien desde ya agradezco la invitación por estar participando de este workshop. Bueno, yo costumbro decir que soy una investigadora, una pesquisadora, como decimos en Brasil, militante, activista, y vengo desarrollando mis actividades académicas como pesquisadora, investigadora, desde hace mucho tiempo, involucrada activamente con las agendas políticas de los movimientos sociales, especialmente con el movimiento de economía solidaria en Brasil, que es el movimiento que vengo desarrollando mis estudios há más de 20 años. Pero el movimiento de economía solidaria principalmente es el momento donde yo hago mi militancia, hago mi activismo político, ¿no? Yo realmente creo en las otras formas de producir y vivir como una estrategia contrahegemónica para cambiar las formas de nos relacionarnos con la economía y consecuentemente con el mundo. Bueno, vengo participando, ¿no? Participo en los foros sociales mundiales desde hace mucho tiempo también, desde 2001, cuando empezaron. Y a partir del Fórum Social Mundial, comecei a involucrar-me também com um outro espaço absolutamente importante para a continuidade do diálogo de los momentos sociais, que é a UPMS, que é a Universidade Popular de los Momentos Sociales. Bueno, la UPMS surge con la perspectiva de poner en diálogo los diferentes momentos sociales, los diferentes saberes y crear a partir de esta perspectiva una red de saberes, ya que la justicia social global inclui também uma justiça global entre os diferentes saberes, não? Quanto melhor se conozca e valora a diversidade de saberes que os movimentos mobilizam em suas lutas, mais claras serão as ações transformadoras de cada de los momentos. É necessário que os momentos entendam e compreendam as diferentes bandeiras de lutas uno dos outros, né? E se reconozcam nessas, sobretudo que se reconozcam em la luta anticapitalista, anticolonial e antipatriarcal que é comum a todas essas, não? E a UPMS, a Universidade Popular de los Momentos Sociais, parte desta perspectiva de colocar estes diferentes saberes em contato e em diálogo, não? E parte de duas perspectivas epistemológicas, pedagógicas, muito importante para as práticas, não? Que é a educação popular, de Paulo Freire, e a ecologia de los saberes de Boaventura de Sousa Santos. E essas duas perspectivas vêm orientando não só a Universidade Popular de los Momentos Sociales, pero muitos outros projetos pedagógicos de pedagogias populares, de universidades populares, como a Universidade do Bem Vivir e o Currículo Global de Economia Solidária, que são dois outros projetos, né, espaços que também eu venho me involucrando, militando, não, nesses processos. Bueno, isso para dizer que a UPMS, a Universidade do Bem Vivir também han sido espaços que eu estou fazendo a militância, mas sobretudo como uma educadora popular, porque o trabalhador social, que eu sou, também é um educador popular. O trabalhador popular que está involucrado com os momentos sociais é também um educador popular que está se inserido em estas ecologias de los saberes, em estes processos de cambio de saberes, de los sujeitos políticos que estão involucrados nesses diferentes processos, não? E em Brasil, a partir da década de 1960, e com mais força durante o processo de democratização do país que sucedeu depois deste período, a categoria profissional de trabalho social passou por um processo de revisão que nós em Brasil chamamos de movimento de reconceituação do trabalho social, que rompeu com a perspectiva conservadora, positivista da profissão e assumiu uma vertente mais comprometida com o materialismo histórico, não? Marxista. E desde então há uma estrecha relação de la categoria profissional de trabalho social com os momentos sociais, com as articulações de base, con los trabajos de los territorios y es inherente al proceso de trabajo del trabajador social brasileño, esses processos de relações com os movimentos sociais, não? Em Brasil, obviamente que há divergências e contradições, pero histórica e hegemônicamente, o trabalhador social é um profissional involucrado com as bandeiras de luta de los diferentes movimentos sociais, né? Os profissionais de trabalho social em Brasil são sujeitos políticos, activistas de los processos políticos, estão à frente de los processos de negociação de las relações entre Estado e sociedade, principalmente de las políticas sociales y principalmente de las políticas de seguridad social, ¿no? De salud y asistencia, pero no solamente. Y bueno, y frente a la provocación de este taller, de este workshop, y ante la perspectiva que les presento acá, de una perspectiva de un profesional de trabajo social, compreendo, entendo, né, o trabalho social como um trabalhador comprometido com outro projeto sociopolítico de sociedade e, portanto, comprometido com a transformação da realidade social. Bueno, muchas gracias por la atención y un abrazo desde México.
Hola, soy Claudia Álvarez, de la Universidad del Buen Vivir y de la campaña por un currículum global de la economía social y solidaria. Gracias por la invitación. ¿Y qué visión debe tener el trabajo social? El trabajo social debe tener la visión de Paulo Freire y de Boaventura de Sousa Santos. ¿En qué sentido? De Paulo Freire, la construcción desde los territorios y desde las prácticas concretas, y con Boaventura desde el diálogo de saberes. O sea, debe ser un trabajo social que nazca desde las prácticas de las organizaciones sociales reales concretas y que pueda dialogar con la diversidad, ¿no es cierto? ¿Qué prácticas transformadoras son necesarias para alcanzar esta visión? Bueno, esas prácticas transformadoras tienen que ver con una visión que salga de las asignaturas y de las materias, sino que tiene que ser una visión holística, no solo disciplinaria en el sentido académico del término, sino que tenga que ver con la multiplicidad y la diversidad de saberes, epistemologías y ciencias que existen en los territorios. ¿Qué puede aprender el trabajo social de los movimientos sociales? Creo que además de aprender, como si los movimientos sociales fueran uno y el trabajo social sea otro, es que sea una articulación de cogestión, ¿no es cierto? Porque los movimientos sociales construyen día a día alternativas, luchas, propuestas, conocimientos, y eso queda en un camino como si después otro camino fuera ir a aprender. Creo que debemos sumarnos a los movimientos sociales, participar activamente de las propuestas y en ese diálogo y en esa atracción construir colectivamente. Esa es una de nuestras propuestas. Así que bueno, muchas gracias.
Hello, my name is Agnieszka Zogatakow. I work at the Christian Social Work Department at the Palacky University in Olomouc in the Czech Republic. I'm happy to have a chance to participate in the People's Global Summit. Let me say a few words about myself. My background is political science, but for almost 15 years, I'm connected to social work. My academic interest is social work policy practice. public policies, social policy, and in particular, things related to immigration and integration of immigrants. One of my recent research regarded the engagement of Czech social workers into policy practice. The other one regarded the legitimacy and accountability of non-governmental organizations assisting immigrants in relation to their engagement in affecting policies. As for the questions of what should be the vision of social work and what social work can learn from social movements, my vision of social work relates to the true engagement of social workers in macro practice and in particular in policy practice, in other words, public policy advocacy. There is a gap in numerous countries between what is declared about social work as a profession and academic discipline that promotes social change and development, social cohesion, and the empowerment and liberation of people, and the actual involvement of social workers in affecting policies at various levels. In many countries, there is similarly a gap between the academic discourse about policy practice and the actual activity of social workers in this area. Thus, my vision is social workers who are not only conscious, active citizens, politically engaged, but mainly active social workers equipped with the knowledge, skills, and competencies, letting them involve as experts in affecting policy making, policy implementation, and policy enforcement to promote social justice, to use evidence and experience of individuals, families, and communities for improving the systemic changes. In my opinion, this relates to a challenge for social work educators. They should give more space in the education process for topics related to macro practice, to prepare social workers for bridging the micro and macro level of social work. Regarding the connection of social work with social movements, I see it in terms of so-called public advocacy that I could call a sister of policy advocacy. As social movements, social workers, when organized, may try to affect the way in which communities and societies perceive specific social issues or social groups. Through campaigning and networking, they may make people sensitive to particular questions, which sometimes in turn may indirectly affect policymaking. Social workers may also learn from social movements the courage to raise voice and to do things differently, more just, and in solidarity with others, in particular those who are in need. Thank you very much. I will be happy for your comments, maybe your questions. Goodbye.